Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call tonight's public hearing to order. Do we have to adopt an agenda for the public hearing? I don't have that on here, that's all. So we'll recommendation to approve the agenda for the public hearing. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Skelton Marvin. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. At this time, if there's anyone who's in conflict, you can recuse yourself now before we begin the public hearing. Councillor Randhawa. Okay, before I hand it over, we're here to discuss the official community plan amendment bylaw number 3472/2021 and zoning bylaw number 3473/2021. I'll pass it over to Mr. Buchan to do some introductions, and we'll start with some information, and then we'll ask the public to comment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is this working? Okay. This public hearing is in regards to the property legally described as Lot 2, District Lot 1992, Coast District Plan 7225. There are two bylaws, an official community plan amendment bylaw 3472, which proposes to change the designation from residential to commercial on the subject property. There's a zoning bylaw amendment 3473, which proposes to change the zoning for RM2 to C3. These amendments are proposed in support of the applicant's desire to build a 3-story 60-unit hotel on the subject property. This 60-unit hotel would be comprised of 60 two-bedroom units, each with a shared washroom. As council is aware, the goal of the new OCP is to focus commercial in the city centre. In recognition of that, the applicant has agreed to register Section 219 covenant, which would restrict the use of the property to the hotel, to a 60-unit hotel. That's the introduction. The applicant is here, and the applicant's agent is on Zoom if there are any questions.
Great. So if the applicant wants to make a statement or a presentation to council, you can do so now. Okay.
Sorry, I was watching the live broadcast. There's a bit of a delay. Was that were you calling for me to speak?
Yes, absolutely. You can introduce your project before we do public comment.
Okay, perfect. And yeah, I was going to say I'm here basically to answer any questions that you might have. I did do the presentation on our project at the last council meeting for first and second reading, which was on June the 28th, which I believe everyone present at the council would have seen. If you'd like, I could go through that again, or if it's everything that you've already seen, not much has changed since that time. We've been pursuing the development permit, which we made the application to the city. And otherwise, we're just looking forward to participating in the public hearing tonight and getting third reading later on.
Well, I'll leave that to your discretion if you feel you want to say anything further. If not, we can start with public comment.
I think that should be good. Again, we kind of made that presentation at the last meeting on June the 28th. So again, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. I know there was no questions at that time, but I think we could probably open this up to other public comment. But yeah, I'll be here listening in.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I don't have the statement of the chair for the public hearing. I just need to get that read out. Thank you. So before we begin, and we'll do comments one at a time, first come, first serve, but I need to read this out as part of the Local Government Act. So a public hearing is organized according to Section 890 of the Local Government Act. Every person present who believes that their interest in the property affected by the proposed bylaw shall be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard respecting matters contained in the proposed bylaw. No one will be discouraged or prevented from making their views known. However, comments will be restricted to matters contained in the proposed bylaw. A person may make their statement in writing as outlined in the public notice, and if received by the deadline, their presentation will be read by the corporate administrator at the public hearing. If a person wishes to make a presentation at the public hearing, they are welcome to do so, provided that the following criteria are followed in order to allow for the recording of the public hearing process. First, the chairperson will recognize only those individuals who present themselves to the corporate administrator. Presenters shall be provided with up to 5 minutes to address council. Prior to speaking, please provide your full name and be prepared to spell your surname for the corporate administrator. Please also provide your residential or business address. Should you wish to read from a prepared statement, the city will require a copy for reference purposes to the corporate administrator. Members of council may, if they so wish, ask questions following the presentation. This is not a question period at which a debate takes place, however. City Council will not provide any comments on issues raised, but will be in attendance to listen to the comments presented. Should no additional speakers present themselves, the chair will call 3 times for anyone else to speak to the matter, and if no one else comes forward to the public hearing, will be adjourned. After the public hearing has adjourned, the council may, without further notice, give whatever effect council believes proper to the representations made at this hearing. So that being said, I will call this first speaker who would like to come forward to speak about this project. And that's just a first come, first serve. Don't be shy. I could hear you all murmuring, but if you want to come forward, it's speak on it in favor, just not in favor. It's anything you want to say about the project. Whoever wants to come forward.
We made enough noise already.
Okay. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to come say a few words about this project? Now is your opportunity to do that. Okay, I will call a second time for any members of the public to come speak to council about this proposed project. And I will call for a third and final time if anyone would like to come forward and speak about this project. Okay, seeing nobody coming forward, then I'd entertain a motion to adjourn the public hearing. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. We'll see you at 7 o'clock of our regular meeting. Call tonight's regular council to order. Recommendation that the regular meeting of July 26, 2021 be suspended and that the committee of the whole meeting be convened. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Call tonight's committee of the whole meeting to order. Recommendation that the agenda for the committee of the whole meeting of July 26, 2021 be adopted as circulated. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Skelton-Morvan. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, first up we have a delegation this evening from EcoTrust, Mr. Graham Anderson, Director of Community Energy Initiative at EcoTrust Canada. Welcome.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Yeah, so I'm...
Just one moment, I think. Can you get his mic, Rosa? Just for everyone listening at home. One moment, the mic's just not working yet. Press the mic. Oh. Can you try it now?
Great. Thanks so much. Yeah, so I'm Graham Anderson. I'm the Director of the Community Energy Initiative at EcoTrust Canada, and we're an organization with many years of history here in Prince Rupert, 25 years of history working on the coast with rural and Indigenous communities to help them advance their local visions. And I'm here to present about home energy retrofit opportunities here in Prince Rupert. So we'll go through some background on our initiative, the opportunity we see in Prince Rupert, which we believe is a uniquely strong location, and barriers in our proposed strategy to address them. So our initiative really focuses on addressing energy poverty, which is a term used to describe households that spend a larger than typical or average share of their household income on meeting their basic energy needs. And this has really caused, there's kind of three core factors that cause this issue. One of them is low household income, high energy prices, and low energy efficiency in homes. And so we tackle energy prices. We're working on policy initiatives around that issue, and we partner directly with communities to advance home energy retrofit projects that can dramatically improve energy efficiency and really reduce the amount of energy that homes are using. One of the ways that we've been able to advance those types of projects is through heat pump installations with partner communities, and we've done this with a number of communities on North Vancouver Island, also with the community of Bella Bella in partnership with Haltzik Nation. And a heat pump is really quite transformative technology that provides both air conditioning and heating by moving heat as opposed to generating it. And so it actually uses about 1/3 of the energy of natural gas or other traditional heating systems, and so dramatically reduces costs and energy use. And they're really quite flexible, adaptable. They can go into either a ducted a home with ducting, or it can be placed in the walls of homes with radiant heat, so it can go virtually into any household. And we see a really uniquely strong opportunity for heat pumps in the community of Prince Rupert for a number of reasons. We'd say it's actually one of the strongest opportunities in the country. And a big part of that is that you have relatively high heating fuel costs here. The natural gas costs, the rates are just higher, largely due to transportation. And so when your fuel costs are almost twice as high, that creates a much greater opportunity for cost savings through retrofits. You have an older housing stock on average as well, and you're in a cool coastal climate, which is really ideally suited to this type of opportunity. And so the heat pumps will operate at their highest possible efficiency in this climate. But we've noticed a couple barriers as well, and one of the big ones is access to funding and financing. And so there are new government initiatives coming out around this, but unfortunately, at least the federal program that was recently announced requires the completion of home energy evaluations by a certified energy auditor, and the closest energy auditors are currently in Prince George or Victoria, BC, or somewhere else on the island. So if someone has to travel a full day to get up here and full day to get home, it adds a lot to the costs, and a need to generate that locally is suggested. The other one, which we're learning more about, is resident awareness. This is something that we've noticed in a number of our partner communities, and it's something that I think is generally increasing over time as these projects go ahead and programs are announced, but also a possible barrier. And so our proposed approach is to undertake a program of support to really catalyze this type of retrofit activity in the city of Prince Rupert and actually across the coastal region here in North Coast and Central Coast in BC. And the first piece of that is a really locally focused efficiency financing feasibility study. And so this is enabled by a program from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. And they have up to $10 million of financing available for each community that wants to undertake a locally based efficiency financing program. They also have grant support available for feasibility stage and design stage work, and so we would propose to initiate that process to explore those opportunities. And a big part of that would be really defining the opportunity for local homeowners here. Another big piece to this is building capacity locally and training and mentoring people locally to undertake these NRCan evaluations, and that would really critically allow homeowners here to access those grants from the federal government and connect that with other provincial grants to really build up the funding. And finally, a program of local promotion and coordination, and this is something that we've undertaken especially on Vancouver Island and with success. And so we've just found that when there's support, there's a number of programs out there, a number of different rebates and opportunities, and when there's support to identify that and to work through that whole process, it can be really a strong assist as well. And so we are making a request today to the City of Prince Rupert for some support on three funding applications that we are planning to submit for total funding of about $300,000 coming into the community in the region. And as part of that request, we're also requesting support on a matching contribution for $7,500, and that's just 10% toward that efficiency financing study I mentioned, which would come into play actually next year in 2022. And I just wanted to close out and say that really this is I think a really exciting opportunity for the community. When we were running some of the initial numbers around sort of financial opportunity for homeowners here, we were looking at cost savings of about $1,000 a year that could be realized through these projects, and that would equate to a payback of 3 to 6 or 7 years, depending on the timing of the installation. And so, really strong business case. Also, really strong connection to the Sustainable City 2030 plan that you folks have developed, and some of the specific goals there around replacing fossil fuel heating systems with electric and so on. And so, I'll leave it there. I thank you so much for the opportunity, and look forward to your questions.
Questions from council?
So the program, does it involve installation of these products too, or is it just like energy, like are you just trying to basically find the program for someone and then they have to get someone to install it?
Yeah, we've supported, and the intent would be to support on coordinating the installations as well as appropriate. In some of the communities that we've worked with, there are no local contractors that are able to do installations, so we've been quite involved with that. Here, we understand there are some that are already established, and so we would be working as much as necessary on that end, but most likely it would be providing more support on the front end, on connecting with the energy advisors, on getting becoming eligible for all of those funding sources, and also promoting the opportunities in general, supporting those contractors and raising awareness.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm a contractor, not for this stuff, but for carpentry, and there's a shortage of trades in this town, and so there could be quite a bit of challenge to finding enough guys to install a bunch of heat pumps. There is guys qualified to do it. There is no doubt about it, but everybody's busy right now, and it's a very challenging time to get people to get work done on your houses right now for anything, whether it's electrical, plumbing, or heat pumps, that sort of stuff. So I'm just curious because for this to be effective, I think that you'd almost have to have whether you have this set up with somebody locally that's kind of willing to take this project on, or have somebody that's available from outside to help, because I think it may be a bit of a struggle with the amount of availability of tradespeople. So,
yeah, that's much appreciated. Thank you.
Councillor Winhow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for your presentation. So, like, if average house, how much we cost them, like, to install this one?
It's a pretty wide range depending on the size of the house and the type of the system. It can be anywhere from just over 5,000 to around 15, 16, 18, depending, just for a larger home that's going into a ducted system. And the rebates that are available currently amount to about 8,500 in total between the province and the federal government. So a big chunk of, even if it was the larger amount, a big chunk is supported that way.
So thanks for the presentation. I'm pretty excited about the ideas involved in this. I think that in general people are moving towards a place where they see a need to address these kinds of issues in their home, in the broader picture of climate-based issues beyond the home. The letter of support that is asking us for $7,500. Maybe a little more detail on that. My understanding is that it would allow us to move towards access to a much bigger pool of money. Could you explain how that's going to work?
That's right. So that's connected to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Opportunity specifically, and they require 10%, or they request 10% matching contribution from the city, and that would be a feasibility study. Defining the opportunity here, so assessing a number of local homes to develop an understanding of really exactly how much homeowners would stand to save, looking at partnerships with local financial institutions on potentially setting up a local fund, and that feasibility study could lead to designing a program that then could access up to $10 million in financing. So it would be essentially financed by FCM, and half of that is through a grant as well, so they would support administration and startup and operating costs of that fund. So it's a fairly significant pool of capital to support the cost of running it, and then also to be deployed in the community.
Okay, my next door neighbor just had his upgraded. The first one he installed wasn't big enough to support his house. There's a new contractor that's moved into town that installs these. And I believe his end cost was close to $18,000. And so on a sliding scale, if you're getting grants, you say you can get up to 8,500 in grants, that would still mean $9,500 out of your pocket for that type of installation, and correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
And then it would take your recovery time on that. It's fine and dandy to talk about energy saving and that, but most people are going to look at what the cost is over a period of time to get that money recouped, and a lot of the houses in Prince Rupert are older houses without good insulation. So if you don't do both of them hand in hand, you're probably going to take longer to recoup that money than in a normal modern house.
Actually, if you do install if you just prioritize the heating system retrofit, sometimes the payback can be faster because your home does tend to use more energy, so it's so dramatically more efficient by prioritizing that. But you're absolutely right about the basic math there and the scenario you've laid out. And what I would suggest is that it's, for some households, it'll be something that makes more sense when you're looking at replacing your system anyway. So if your furnace replacement was going to cost you maybe $5,000 or $6,000 anyways, there's going to be a bit of a cost differential there. But if you're then saving $1,000 a year, that's only 3 or 4 years that it takes to pay back that difference, and then you're operating that equipment at your gain for the remaining of the 10 or 15 or 20 years that it's in use. So some cases it may make sense just to wait until you're ready to replace the system anyways.
How long is this program going to be available?
Which are the Federation of Canadian Municipalities?
Yeah.
It's undefined actually, but it's open. It's a fund that's received significant funding from the federal government that's been transferred over to them, and it's available until it runs out. Essentially,
Okay.
there's no indication yet that it's anywhere near that
Okay.
level of subscription, though.
So when do you, if we're going to move forward with this, what fiscal year do you need the 7,500 in 2021 or 2022?
2022.
Okay, so we can budget it for our next budget to do the feasibility study?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And we would seek to have a letter of support and go through the funding application process, but we wouldn't start the project or draw on those funds until next year.
Okay, that's helpful for us. Other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Great questions.
Okay, next I draw upon any members of the public who want to come talk to council about any topic of their choice. They can come forward now. Welcome back.
Is the mic on, or do you have to push it?
It's on.
So the question being was about the new garbage cans. I like the whole idea of it. First, I wanted to ask, I figured they must cost like $100 each or something like that. So I was wondering what budget did they come out of? But more importantly, I wanted to know, what are we going to do with the recycling things? And so I've seen in other places where they bundle it up into compressed things, put it on a truck, and send it to Vancouver, where I would hope that we're going to try to recycle. We're going to try to separate them here, and recycle them here. And that's the real gist of my question, type thing. What's the product going to be?
Yeah, so we discussed the budget at a previous council meeting, but essentially the majority of this is funded by gas tax. And a small portion of it is funded by the utility, so people pay $20 one-time fee, all households, for both the bins. But the other remaining fund is gas tax. So that's how the program was funded. And then, does one of staff want to talk about?
Would you define the $20? So you mean $20 each? So that's $40?
One $20 fee for all households. So one-time fee, $20.
Okay, yeah.
And then our recycling program, I'm not sure if you want to comment on.
I can comment on that. So I just wanted to, thank you, just to confirm the question, is that about the older bins or is that just about all of the recycling that gets collected within the community?
No, so I'm talking about when this thing starts up in October or September or whenever it's going to start, and you've got these bins to recycle. So what's going to happen with that? Like I said, I've seen it just bundled up and sent to Vancouver, and then it's not even sent to Vancouver. There, I think it was put on a ship and sent to China.
So what happens
Oh.
to the materials?
The materials that
Yeah.
are collected are
That are going to be collected. Yeah.
that are going to be collected are going to the regional district sorting center, and it's as part of the MMBC program. It's up to them to do what they do in selling their product. So it'll be packaged with their product, I assume. So they have the contract to collect the materials from the city, and what they do with it, I'm not 100% sure, to be honest with you.
Okay, just a couple of days ago, I saw a truck outside the recycling depot with these bundles. So it just doesn't make sense if we're sending it down to Vancouver in a truck and then sending it, I suspect, to China to be sorted. That just doesn't make sense at all. But could you follow up on it?
We can, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you. Would you like to come speak to council?
I don't know if I have the right information. I saw this one in the newspaper. Sorry.
It's okay.
Notice of a public hearing. Is it today, this one?
Is that for, I'm not sure which one that is.
60 unit.
For the hotel?
Modular unit.
Yes, we actually already had the public hearing at 6 o'clock today.
Oh, 6 o'clock today.
Yeah,
I was late. Yes.
yes.
Sorry. Also, so can I speak a little bit about this?
No, unfortunately, you're not able to because under legislation, now that the public hearing is closed, council cannot receive any more information from
Okay,
the
so you
public. on it.
started at 6 o'clock and
Yeah.
everything done.
Yeah, we had people here at 6, and that's when the public hearing was attended. And unfortunately, we're now bound to not take any more information for the
Okay,
project.
that's fine.
Unfortunately, sorry about that.
That's it.
Come on.
Further to what she just asked, is it going to be on the not the transcript, but the film of the earlier one?
It was recorded, yes.
So she'd be able to see it on
That's correct.
economic input.
Okay, I entertain a motion to adjourn and reconvene the regular council meeting. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, recommendation that the agenda for the regular council meeting of July 26, 2021 be adopted as presented. Moved by Councillor Renhouse, second by Councillor Moreau. All those in favor? Anybody opposed? Motion's carried. Item 3A, recommendation that the minutes of the special council meeting of June 28, 2021 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Scout Morvan, second by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Item 3B, recommendation that the minutes of the regular council meeting of June 28, 2021 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Aidi, seconded by Councillor Rantawa. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. And item 3C, recommendation that the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting of June 28, 2021 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Aidi, seconded by Councillor Scott Morvan. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, first we have a report from Mr. Buchan regarding the telecellular tower proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The report before you is seeking council's direction on whether or not it wishes TELUS to proceed with community consultation on the proposed cell tower on adjacent to Highway 16. The city's already given feedback once on a previous version of this, but that proposal's been amended, reducing the size of the tower from 50 meters to 30 meters. However, it's still in a high-profile location that does not meet the preferred location criteria as outlined in council's policy regarding this. So we're wondering whether or not council wants to give feedback now, asking TELUS to find a new location, or whether it should proceed with community consultation on this and render a decision at a later time.
Okay, so the options then, if council chooses not to go with this location, would be a resolution to the effect that we're not accepting the public consultation, whereas, and that to work with city staff to find an alternative suitable location. Would that be?
Yes, I think that's the option. Staff have been certainly working on this for some time. Mr. Pucci before myself, and we've given quite a number of alternative locations, and we've asked them to actually give us an area identifying the entire, I guess, an area that would work for their specifications. We haven't seen that yet. We are aware that they are looking at other options, but they are very interested in this particular location. But given its sensitivity at the gateway of the municipality, we thought that council may want to weigh in on this now, and if you're okay going to public consultation, you can let them know that. But if it's simply not a suitable location, I think it's reasonable for council to advise TELUS of that at this point. We would still work with TELUS to find a location that would work with them, for them.
Okay.
I'd put forward the motion that we refuse this location because it's the same as the previous one, which it's the location. It's not so much the height that that they've changed. So I'm thinking that we should put forward the motion to basically refuse this location, but to work with TELUS and again with the proposed locations that we have given them.
Second? Seconded? Discussion? Councilor Eady?
I guess my question is, and you may or may not know the answer, but it appears that there is a very clear preference for this particular location. I'm just wondering if we're aware of the technical reasons why that might be.
No, just the results of those technical reasons. They say that the other locations we've given them don't work for them, though we're not in a position to be able to assess whether or not that is completely accurate or not, because it's not our skill set. We're aware or hear that other cell providers do have service and community-wide service and without this location. So it's not clear to us why it wouldn't work for them as well.
Other comments?
I tend to agree with Councillor Niche on this piece. I don't think we need to go to public notification for something that we wouldn't support in the first place. So I think it makes more sense to try to find a location that works best for both parties and then move from there.
Any other comments? Okay, motion's on the floor. All in favor? Anybody opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, next item 4B, report from our Chief Financial Officer regarding the May 2021 financial variance report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Overall, operating and utility revenues and expenses are within budget, with no variances of note aside from the diminished revenue as compared to projected budget in the airport ferry operations. Actual experience to budget by the end of the year can be offset through the use of the COVID-19 Smart Restart grant provided by the province, therefore mitigating the impact Air Canada has had on this department. Large capital projects in the works by the end of May were proceeding and costs continue to roll in. Other capital projects slated for this summer were still in the planning stage. This concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions from council?
I just wanted to know if the COVID Smart Restart Reserve will be available for other departments if needed, like the rec center and things like that?
Yes, the COVID Restart Grant was provided to mitigate impacts COVID has had on city operations, and those impacts aren't known until after we already experience them.
Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to 4C, a report from the corporate administrator, resolution from the closed meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As resolved at the June 28th closed meeting of Council, it was moved by Councillor Randawa and seconded by Councillor Cunningham that Council award the Freedom of the City Award posthumously to Dr. Frank Parnell and that the Civic Appreciation Award go to Ms. Margaret Lester Lorette. And that this resolution be released at a future regular meeting of council.
Great, thank you. And now that usually we do this at Canada Day, and we'll make some arrangements with their families to do potentially something here at City Hall then?
That is correct.
Great, so maybe at next meeting or two, we can
Correct.
get that sorted? Great,
Yep.
thank you. Okay, next we have a report from the corporate administrator regarding EcoTrust letters of support request. You want to speak any further to this?
Just to say, Mr. Mayor, that staff is requesting this evening that staff be directed to provide letters of support as requested and to work further with EcoTrust on the process for matching funds application and in-kind support.
Great. Anybody want to move that? Moved by Councillor 80, seconded by Councillor Moreau. Discussion? Yeah, I think this is a great process to undertake. That'll be good for the community. If there's nothing further, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, 5A, report from iPlan regarding the official community plan amendment application bylaw number 3472 and rezoning application ZBLA 2102, bylaw number 3473, 2021, for the property legally described as Lot 2, District Lot 1992, Range 5, Coast District Plan 7225. So the recommendation is that council give third reading to the City of Prince Rupert official community plan amendment bylaw number 3472, 2021, and City of Prince Rupert zoning bylaw number 3462, 2021, amendment bylaw number 3473, 2021. Oh, right, we need to, Councilor Randhawa needs to recuse himself. Now, just a note to planning then, you said that they mentioned that they would agree to a covenant.
Yes.
Does that need to be done in this reading, or would that be done at adoption?
No, it'll be done prior to adoption.
Okay.
So the covenant would restrict the uses to that of a hotel in order to mitigate or to work with council's desire to concentrate commercial in the city center.
Okay. Anybody want to move the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Niche. Discussion? Councillor 80.
When we talked about this last time, there was a notation in the documents that the fire department had expressed some questions or concerns around access to their vehicles in a relatively tight parking spots. I'm just wondering, I asked about it at that time, and I'm just wondering where we are now with that issue.
Thank you. Through the mayor, I believe that comment was likely to do with the previous version of the proposal. The proposal has been redesigned to remove some of the parking in order to make access aisles wider and turning radiuses better. Having said that, we have a development permit application in, and we will confirm with the fire chief that the radiuses and access widths are done in compliance with our specifications and code.
Councillor Niche.
Correct me if I'm wrong here. I just looking at all the numbers here, and we have A that we're working on right now, and B, which has the same bylaw number, or the same. Is it the same? Okay, never mind. I was just making sure that I thought they were the same there, so I just wanted to make sure that we were not mixing them up, right?
Right.
So, is that, am I correct, or?
Are you talking about the resolution itself?
Yeah, for the next one here, so it says bylaw number 3473 on B and A. So,
That's only an error in the subject, but the bylaw is actually correct.
Okay, I'm just
Oh,
checking there, just because it's all good.
Okay. Mr. Bucket, maybe you can explain too, because usually we do third and final reading on after public hearings, and obviously the recommendation is third reading, so maybe for council and the public's sake, what the process is currently.
Yeah, well, there are two reasons for final reading, adoption being deferred. The first is that this property is within the 800-meter radius of an intersection of a controlled access highway. This then requires Ministry of Transportation and Highways to sign the bylaw between third and fourth reading. So as soon as we're finished with this and it gets third reading, it'll be sent off the highways for their signature. Once they've signed it, it'll be eligible from that point of view to come back for adoption. In addition, during this time, we are finishing up the covenant with the applicant, and we'll have that signed and executed and held with an undertaking to register as soon as the bylaw is completed.
Do you anticipate that that would be complete for our next council meeting, or would it take longer than that?
That's what we're working towards. This is up to an external agency's timing in part, as well as the lawyer for completing the covenant, but that is the timeline we're working towards.
Right. So, because council is legally obligated now after the public hearing not to be able to discuss this project any further with any members of the public. That's correct?
That's absolutely correct, yeah. Once the public hearing is closed, the council cannot, or council members cannot take any representations from any member of the public or the applicant on this.
Okay. Any other discussion about third reading?
I'll just make a similar point to what I was trying to reference last meeting was, and I think Mr. Buchan had kind of touched on this, is rezoning anything to commercial outside of our downtown core. I think we need to be really careful and thoughtful not to work against our main objective, which is obviously clustering retail as close as we can. And so from my perspective, the covenant addresses that concern. So I just want to make sure I understood that correctly. So third reading passes, it goes to the Ministry of Transportation for approval, and then the covenant gets passed as a subject to adoption?
Through the mayor, the covenant doesn't get passed. The covenant is basically drawn up and executed, and it can either be registered prior to adoption, or it can be held with a lawyer who's given an undertaking to register it upon adoption. But we need to make sure that it's done as and secured before adoption is done.
Understood. Okay, thank you very much.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Anybody opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. You can grab Councillor Renhow again. Next, we have another report from Mr. Buchan regarding the rezoning application ZBLA 2002, bylaw number 3473/2021. So the recommendation that council give first and second reading to the City of Prince Rupert zoning bylaw number 3475/2021 to allow 22.5 meter high building providing 70 apartments on the subject property, and 2, require a section 219 covenant prior to adoption to restrict the use of 12 of the residential units to seniors housing only, and to require the proposed traffic measures, and 3, to proceed to public hearing. Moved by Councillor Moreau, seconded by Councillor Adie. Discussion. Mr. Buchan, do you have anything you want to say about this project at this point?
Nothing to add. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Questions from council. Councillor Moreau.
This isn't a question. This is just statement for why I've moved the motion to do first and second reading. So, I mean, housing is obviously a very urgent and pressing issue. I think we've all seen inflation, not just in the real estate market, but also the rental market as well. And I think, I mean, it's no secret that there was dueling petitions. I think the whole community is aware that, I mean, in any project that we're going to pursue, there's not going to be 100% consensus. But with that said, I think the onus is on us as elected officials to hear from all of those who feel that they're affected, and try to hear as many different angles and concerns and suggestions and ideas that we can. One of the ones I know that came up quite often was around kind of traffic and parking. And so I'm happy to see that this is addressed in this application. So that's why I'm happy to move for first and second reading and move to public hearing. Again, I like the subject to the 219 covenant, as well as the traffic impact study recommendations being addressed.
Other comments from council? So we can expect a public hearing if this proceeds at the end of August then, our next meeting? Would that be when it was? 2 weeks notice at least?
Yes, if you wanted at the regular council meeting or the same day, that it could be done that, or at council's wish on a different date.
generally we like to hit the same night as a council meeting, so if it's possible to do the same timing and then ensure that that there's enough notice within that area to make sure that everyone's aware that there's a public hearing as well. We want to make sure there's absolute clarity there, given some of the context around this project. Other comments from council about this first and second reading?
Basically what you said, I want to make sure that the public's well aware of this hearing so we can get the input, because it's a fairly controversial project for some people, and I think with the transparency of this should be out there so that everyone can see what's being done and how it's being done. And if there's any suggestions about traffic, parking, or other things, it'll come up at that public hearing, and we can address them if we have to.
Councillor Eady.
I guess given the number of signatures that got attached to either of the two petitions, I'm just wondering whether there is a thought to possibly thinking about an alternative location given the degree of interest. I mean, I don't know if it will or not, but it seems to me that it's possible that it would. Should we be prepared to think of a different location for that meeting?
That's a good point. Maybe, I'm not sure what the right move on that would be. See what type of interest maybe comes back first in terms of people registering for the public hearing, and then maybe applying an alternative location, or do you just do it from scratch, Mr. Buchan?
If you think that there's going to be a larger than, I guess, normal crowd, a crowd larger than this room can hold, I would plan on that alternative room right now, because when the notices go out, we specify the location of it.
Right. Yeah, that might be a good idea, Councillor Eady, for us to plan for that, and if not, it may be just a smaller crowd, but you might as well plan for more people to come than not. So perhaps staff can make arrangements then for an alternative location. I'll leave it to you guys to discuss what that location would be. I know we've done it before at the Highliner, but I mean, I don't know if we need that large of a location, so maybe we can discuss amongst staff on what that could be. The notice would go into paper when, for next week?
Yeah, we will, there will be requirement for 2 editions of the newspaper, so there will be sufficient notification, so likely next week and the week after, or the following 2 weeks, depending on what the publication schedule is.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, entrust staff then with that. That's a good thought there, Councillor Eady. I think that might be appropriate for this, and even if not, then at least we're prepared regardless of the circumstances that unfold. Any other comments from council on first and second reading? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. We will send out notice to the public hearing and the location and time, most likely end of August, around our next council meeting if all the scheduling works out well, which I think is August 23rd. Okay, moving on. Final reading for the charges and fees amendment bylaw. So recommendation that council give fourth and final reading to the recreation fees and charges bylaw amendment number 3474/2021. Moved by Councillor Scott Marvin, second by Councillor Niche. Any further discussion on this matter?
Just one, it was brought to my attention just last week that our parking lot charge per stall is basically $22 an hour, and it's being very restrictive for food trucks. Say, like, we've got baseball games going on and they're 2 or 3 hours, so the charge for a food truck to be there for the baseball game is $60, $70, and none are coming simply because they can't make any money if they've got to put out $60 just for a baseball game or something like that. You know, a large function like the All Native or that might be different than selling a few pops or hamburgers at a baseball game. So I don't know, and I asked around and found out that some of these food trucks go down the line and they get a business license, and it's $25 for the day to park on city property or something like that. So I don't want to hold this up, but it's something I think we should take a look at. And if we have to, maybe come up with a different plan, because, you know, people right now, if they're at the rec center for a baseball game or a soccer game, have no alternative but to run across the highway to McDonald's, which isn't the safest thing to do for young kids and that.
Yeah, I think if we make amendments now, we have to do back to first reading, correct?
If you, because the bylaw has already gone through third reading, you would need to repeal it, repeal the third reading. We'd need to come back with revisions, which would delay the fees and charges. I can't commit to looking at that, and then should we need to put a further amendment forward for the
Yeah, no,
bylaw, that's something that we can do in anticipation of next season.
That was what I was going to say. I think maybe we move forward tonight, and then we look into that issue in particular, and we can always bring an amendment back to council. I think that might be the appropriate way to go, rather than trying to line item the bylaw tonight. Any other comments? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, reports, questions, and inquiries from members of council. Councilor Adie.
Yeah, I'm going to return to the garbage cans, and recognizing that my position on the recycling program is that it's a giant step forward, and the question I ask is within that spirit. What I'm hearing more often than anything not is a comment on the size of the garbage cans. So I guess as a point of clarity for the public, is it my understanding that those households who find themselves in excess of the capacity of that garbage can still put out a second garbage can that will be taken?
We've heard some of those comments coming forward, and we're looking at a program where households that believe they are going to come up with more garbage and still be recycling will have an opportunity to get a second bin at a charge, and then when they no longer need that bin, then they can then return it to the city, and that charge will then be taken away. The idea is that at the time that you need that bin, the second bin, for however many number of years, you can use that, but as time goes on, you probably won't need the bin anymore, and it can be returned back, and your service will just be back to the standard service.
Yeah, thanks. I know as a sort of a mental exercise in my own home, we started thinking about, well, how do we compact our footprint, as it were. I think the other point of reference, though, is the difference between somebody who's living alone, for example, and a family of 6. And I think there should be a level playing field that takes into account the difference in those two sets of circumstances.
So we will be bringing something back to council to review, and so ultimately council will have the decision on sort of the program re-rollout. But we feel that we've given a net positive, as with the amount of sort of, let's say, airspace within the 2 bins, it actually is a positive amount to just the 2 bags that you get now. So it equates to probably about 4 bags when you look at the amount that goes in the garbage and the amount that goes into the recycling, which is quite a bit larger. And we're not doing a bag limit anymore. It is, it's, kitchen catchers and smaller things can go in that black garbage can, which then can be sort of compacted more. So it's not just 2 bags in there, because it's a dumping mechanism now, so it can be more loosely put in and compacted into that can.
Okay, thanks. Again, I'm in support of it. I just hear these questions. So.
Okay, just 2 quick things. One, I'd like to point out that the Prince Rupert ladies soccer team played in their first tournament in almost a year and a half in Kitimat on the weekend, and they came through the weekend undefeated, won the tournament, which is sort of a bonus. I think they haven't practiced for quite a while or that, so it's something. And also on the weekend we had the North Coast Community Service Fishing Derby, and they did raise $15,000. And I asked them what that money was for, and it's going towards a 24/7 child care center, as well as a child care development center in their facility. So I think the $15,000 was raised was for a very good cause, and the tournament was well received. So thank you. And thank you, staff, for going the extra mile to accommodate them for their parking, which I understand was quite interesting because there was lineups for people to weigh their fish and everything. It was quite well attended from what I understand.
Thank you. Any other reports from council? If not, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councilor Rady, second by Councilor Ranhawa. All in favor? Means adjourned. Have a great night. Thank you.